our goal was endurance and get to home, cover the 330 kilometers distance, and call it a day. So that was the plan. When the battery actually said no more to go, we had actually clocked 467 kilometers on a single charge of that battery.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode on the Mission Shunya podcast. I'm your host Girish Shivakumar. First, a big thanks to all the listeners who have given this podcast a rating and review. Ratings and reviews, especially on platforms like Apple Podcast, definitely help in promoting the podcast. So big thanks to all of you. And in case you haven't been following the Mission Shunya podcast on social media channels like Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, then you're probably missing something. Because every now and then, whenever I have a big news to share or some world news that is really important in the space, then I create short audio video versions of it. A short post of about a minute or less and post it on these platforms. Like for example, the recent Indian budget and the budget recommendations in the clean tech space, or the UK's government plan to cut emissions by 2050. These are really big news, and whenever the news happens, I create short posts on these channels. So make sure you follow Mission Shunya on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so on. Now on to this week's show. Every now and then I get an enthusiast in the space who comes on this podcast and shares his or her story. Today's guest is Syed Mubasheer. Syed Mubasheer is an auto enthusiast and he wanted to create an electric car, or rather modify the existing electric car that he had to make sure he could travel intercity and cover around 300 kilometers or more. On this podcast, in this interview that I had with him, he shares this experience of doing that. He shares how he got to modify the car and what he did to ensure that he could cover this distance. So without further ado, here's the interview that I had with Syed Mubasheer. Hello Syed, welcome to the Mission Shunya podcast.
Thank you, Girish. Thank you for this opportunity to share my experience and journey with you.
So just give us a brief background. Tell us what you do.
Girish, I've been into two areas of work. One is I'm a product design cost consultant. The other thing that I do very passionately is I'm a lithium-ion and lithium polymer battery building expert. So I've been building battery packs and system integrating for custom host equipment in India.
The reason that I wanted you to be part of the show was the journey that you undertook. The Bangalore-Chennai route on an electric vehicle with absolutely no charge in between. What was your interest in doing that?
The background again is our experience and expertise in building the energy modules for other applications, which became interest and to see how it could translate for mobility application. At the time, about 2010-11 time frame, there was only one legal electric vehicle on the roads, but there was an anxiety about using an electric vehicle, basically because of the range. And here we were doing things related to a technology in secondary batteries, the lithium ion and lithium polymer, which seemed to be a good fit, and people were exploring world over to see how this could be accommodated into a as the fuel tank for a mobility solution. It just seemed right to sort of explore in this arena, and that's how this whole journey started per se.
Have you been an automobile enthusiast prior to starting this?
Well, my background is mechanical engineering, and as a part of my education, I did a automobile related project, which also went on to win the Engineering Design National Award in '97, and for which I also applied, and we got our patent for that design. So yes, there's a tinge of automobile enthusiasm in the background to this story too. Yes.
But coming from a pure play automobile engineering background or a mechanical background, dealing with, say, battery chemistry and other things must be challenging for you to undertake. How did you brace up to that?
A very good question, Girish. But I think it's somebody from the outside of an industry who's always seems to be disrupting something which is very, as we know it, industry like. For example, if you see who's disrupting the internal combustion engine vehicle industry, it's somebody from a background not necessarily connected to ICE, which is like the Tesla story, right? So something like a mobile a telephony solution, like mobile phone, disrupting something like the camera industry. So I don't think it's a link basically because of experience. It was for me, it was pure interest in the chemistry since 2001, 2002, that a little bit of this electrochemistry is able to give such high energy density. So it was just pure passion that kept my interest going. And since I've come from a mechanical engineering background, my interest stayed on to being an application oriented product or designer using this technology. So that's the relation to this interest.
That's really fascinating. Now, let's get to the details. So, how did you start with the vehicle? You obviously told that since there was just one vehicle, you had to deal with it. So, how did you go about in terms of repackaging the batteries and other mechanical aspects of the vehicle to make it like fit for a long journey like the one you undertook?
So this journey which we undertook, Girish, was in March 2017. But prior to this, 4 5 years before this, there's been a lot of work that has been going on in trying to understand it, understand how something like this could be accommodated into a endurance build in the first place. Two, three things happened. One, I was fortunate that I got some opportunities to work with enthusiasts from industry as well as from many academic institutions for whom we build batteries specifically for for vehicles. So mobility grade lithium-ion battery packaging was an opportunity that we got. So that kept on translating into becoming more familiar and becoming a little more experts at doing this. That was number one. Number two, 2011-12 time frame, we actually got our first electric vehicle which was running on lead acid, and we stripped it off the lead acid system after studying it for more than 5 6 months, and started finding out what will be the good footprint to put something into this to do our trials. So that went on for over 4 years, from 2012 till about 16 17. During this time, as I said, I got connected to many enthusiasts from the industry, from personal users. Like there's a group in Pune who became owners of the Mahindra E2O. So I actually shipped my car to Pune, and we did a electric vehicle rally from Pune to Mahabaleshwar. We did our on our own between Pune to Ahmednagar to VRD, which is a testing center for automobiles. While we were doing this, sharing experiences and gathering data about building a vehicle, which was this was a short distance, about 80 to maximum about 100 kilometers on a charge. We said this should probably do endurance. So we started talking to people who are aligned to the electric vehicle business. Our observations was people again in that familiar business or familiar industry were still having their own reservations about can we actually do endurance drive. So we said only thing we were left with was choosing an expensive battery system to build, and that was the leap of faith. So I had to wait for an opportunity where I could get enough high quality lithium polymer cells, and I wanted to get the best so that I could probably do this test appropriately. And when I did get that opportunity, so I jumped onto it. We brainstormed internally as a team, and I have a really fantastic team who was with me on this. uh, we were actually prodding into unknown territory per se, and we said let's go build this table up, and let's do something which is long. So the question was, how long is endurance? We said let's do Chennai Bangalore. Why Chennai Bangalore? Because both are places familiar to us. We have works in both places. We can do some part of the work in either of these things, and well, we were familiar with these two cities in the first. So I said at least a car should go between these two cities. So that's how the conceptualizing of endurance between these two destinations started in the first place.
Now, after getting the basic things right, like getting the chemistry right and putting it into the car or repackaging the car with new lithium ion batteries, everything was set right. Did you face any other challenges? I mean, how did you decide, like, okay, I've got the right chemistry, I've got the right capacity of batteries. So, what are the other things that you had to ensure before you undertook this journey?
Honestly, Girish, we were always doing this with a sense of doubt and lots of enthusiasm, because that every user or any industry expert we would talk to wouldn't give us the encouragement or the wherewithal to say, I think this is possible. So, honestly, we didn't get everything right. We actually overestimated our battery design. We actually had a battery which was a little more than the actual expectation of this whole endurance that we wanted to do. When we speak to people who were related to, like, see the other systems in the car, like the motor, the motor controller. They would say, hey, this won't do beyond say 1 hour of operation because the motor will probably burn out, or the controller will get too hot that you can't continue the journey, things like that. So in all earnestness, we didn't have all the data right. The only thing that we had was this enthusiasm to say, what's worse that could happen? If it stops, we'll drag the car home. Something like that was how we went about doing this.
So when finally the day came, so how did you prepare for the day, and how did you start? So from where did you start? Where did you reach? And what is the time that you take to reach from say I think Bangalore to Chennai, right?
Yeah, the first drive was between Bangalore to Chennai. There were two reasons for this thing. One was we were doing the battery build ground up on a table here in Chennai. We wanted to do the platform on that electric vehicle right. So I engaged with some people who could help us put the chassis together for us, and that was done in Bangalore. So we shipped this modular design of our battery, which was done table up. We stripped it down in a semi-knockdown format. We packaged it so that it could probably be built again into the car in that little footprint. So our main goal was, we're not going to change the dimensions of the car. We're not going to ask for extra space. We're going to try to package, and which is one of our strengths, in the smallest footprint, this high density battery pack in the same space of the original vehicle, so that it doesn't look any different from what the existing car the dimensions and the other details are. So that was the challenge. And coming to that day, it was about 6 months, as I said, 2 years of planning, perhaps about 6 months of actually getting the system right, 4 months of actually building the battery ground up on the in Chennai, about 1.5 months of work in putting the vehicle together. So one thing we did was, why don't we make it look a little different? So we did some FRP front and back cowls of the car a little differently, and that was about 2 weeks of work. And the day we finished the battery charge, we said tomorrow let's drive it from Bangalore. So that's how it fell into place. There was no fixed date planned. The day we finished the battery at 12 p.m. at 12 midnight on 18th, we said tomorrow morning we'll drive it. And 19th March 2017, we took that drive.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, so we had to have backup. So my team was there, about four of my team members. We This is what we did. We said let's leave in the morning. I would leave driving this car at an average speed, and I would like you guys to sort of catch up after 3-4 hours, figuring out where I am. And things come to worse, let's prepare for towing it all the way back to Chennai, or if you're very closer to Bangalore, towards Bangalore, whatever works well. And around 4 o'clock, 4:30 a.m. in the morning, I started my journey. A lot of excitement, actually, bit of nervousness, but it was like, yeah, I have a backup. My team will come and pick me up. That was the thing. So I drove from my home in Banaswadi in Bangalore, and I prefer to take the route through Andhra Pradesh, which is the Chittur, the Ghat section, and coming into Chennai from Vellore. What it would do is it would give me a lot of terrain to cover of different profiles. I would have gradients going up, I would have good slopes going down, I could check on regeneration. Then I would have had about 100 kilometers of flat terrain. I would have city driving to cover. So the whole gamut of experience of a vehicle going through a long distance would probably get covered. That was the idea when we chose this route, and that's how the journey started that day.
To put things in perspective, especially for listeners outside of India, so this is about 300 kilometers, right?
Door to door, 327 on the first drive.
Yeah, and this terrain, as you said, has like both the altitudes are different and the terrains, the slopes are different. So I'm sure this must be an enduring thing. And another thing that I want to mention is the date that you have chosen, that you did this journey, March, is just about summer.
Oh, it was hot.
So temperature must be a big concern, especially for electrical components and the battery pack in an electric vehicle. How did you deal with that?
Very rightly said. So it was peak summer, and we had a really huge battery. We had done the math in terms of what to expect in terms of escalation in temperatures. So every, say, 60, 70 kilometers, I would stop. I had measuring devices which would quickly give me a temperature readout. I would actually physically get out of the car and shoot at the motor and other sensitive systems with my infrared thermo scanner to get read and make those observations. So I kept doing this solo till I hit my 100 kilometer marker, by which time my team came over to catch up with me in the other follow-on car. So once they caught up with me, we did some more, brainstorming there to decide whether it's a journey worth going forward. It was an easy yes, except that either they had to drive slow with me or they had to go somewhere far ahead and wait for me. So we decided to do that, and we continued the journey per se. So coming to the question of temperature rise, as I said, every 15-20 minutes I was consciously taking these measurements, and it was well within the expected performance range of the whole battery system. And at the end of the journey, we didn't see anything that would alarm us. We were actually excited to see the kind of performance from the whole battery system. And the battery system was lean in terms of design, in terms of not having parasite loads for running, temperature control, and that was a good advantage we got of getting this kind of a mileage.
So, how long did it take for you to reach Chennai?
Very interesting question. So it was a hot summer day, and I was trying to do endurance. So I told myself, I'm not going to run on the AC which we had on the car. We're not going to use the horn. I'm not going to use. I'm going to use minimal brakes because this is endurance drive. It was so hot. I at one point around 12ish near Chittor, I told my team, "You go, let's get ahead. I want to have a quick breakfast or brunch. Here's what I want you to do. We cut in some sort of foam contraption on the window, which was angular to the direction of the vehicle. So when I'm driving, some amount of air could probably get, cut in and blow on my face and into the car. So that was the only contraption we did to sort of beat the heat. Otherwise, the battery, the motor, they behave beautifully through the journey. Because I was not doing high speeds. I was trying to do an average of 40, 45. Because at the end of the day, our goal was endurance and get to home, cover the 330 kilometers distance, and call it a day. So that was the plan.
So, how many hours did you say?
11 and a half hours.
Not a big deal. I mean, for an endurance ride of this magnitude, I'm sure that's still a good thing to do. One particular thing on the battery capacity, did you enhance the battery capacity of in the vehicle, or by replacing the old batteries were you able to package more in terms of kilowatt hour?
Yes, exactly. That was our capability demonstration in that product in the first place. So what was occupying in a footprint a 7.2 kilowatt battery system? In that same space, we packaged 30 kilowatt hours of batteries. And this battery was just not cells, it also had its intelligent battery management system within that space, the high voltage and low voltage controls, relays and cabling. So all of that, which is under the seat of the car, in the same space we try to package our new battery system. So that is what we did there.
That's really wonderful to put things in perspective. This 30 kilowatt hour battery pack is now getting to be the standard norm. 30 to 40 kilowatt hour is getting to be a standard norm of battery packs in cars, like in sedan class. So that's the norm. But I'm sure, like as you said, like 10 years back, I mean, this was not the case. Seven kilowatt hour was probably the highest that you could get on a car. That's really wonderful. So once you reached Chennai, and was everything fine? Did you plan to come back doing the same endurance ride back?
No, what we did was, we, as I said, while doing this planning and allowing for a factor of safety in the battery design, we actually had a battery when after reaching destination had quite a lot of leftover energy. So we covered the 30 plus kilometers on the day one, and we said, and we found another 17-20% left over. So what we did was next day we again started driving from Chennai towards Mahabalipuram and covering about and coming back about 109 plus kilometers. We still had 3% left. So next day I took a journey towards GST road, which is another direction of the national highway. And when the battery actually said no more to go, we had actually clocked 467 kilometers on a single charge of that battery.
Wow, that's really great.
And yeah, that so that was the data that we could collect. So you see, our vision was 330 plus kilometers, but what we could actually do was 467. And this included just not endurance drive. Now it actually included all types of driving, including city driving. When we had this data, we felt, and also some of our friends in the who are users amongst electric vehicles said, well, you drove from Bangalore to Chennai, you got a lot of advantage of a gradient getting you down from a high altitude destination like Bangalore towards Chennai. So we said, okay. So a couple of weeks later, we drove from Chennai back to Bangalore, and we still had about 10-15% of energy left. We closed that loop in about 2 weeks, doing this drive one way and then going back to Bangalore. And my car ever since goes to Bangalore on a 10-hour charge and drives at an average of 60-65 kilometers an hour. And we do the distances today in about 6.5+ hours, including breaks for lunch and tea and whatever on the way, just like any other car. But yeah, we go a little slower because this vehicle is designed for a maximum speed of 65 kilometers per hour.
That's a really interesting story. I mean, it shows that there is a lot of confidence in the vehicle that you have, and the technology is kind of evolved. So the first time you do it, it's probably testing out. But once you are confident enough, then I'm sure it becomes easy. Now, looking at the market per se, the car market, how do you see the electric vehicle market shaping up in India? Seems to be a lot of policies that are coming into place, and there's a lot of interest from OEMs in this space. How do you see this market evolve? Considered compared to say 5 7 years back when you had to do this kind of indigenous concepts compared to what the OEMs are throwing up in the market now.
So I would still like you to refer to me as somebody who's an enthusiast trying to do and find solutions around this technology. So with that limited expertise and exposure, I would say I would rather say that the technical solutions are out there for adoption for mass market. For example, if you look at the market at say for public transport, such large size battery solutions are the possible option for moving people in batches of 8 like in share autos or up to 80 like in buses. But if you look at it from an adoption from a personal transport perspective, we could have in built-in modular designs that could probably be something which I can use for my everyday purpose. But when I say go to some sort of a swapping station, I could have a large battery module that would allow me to go the long distance that I want. But again, there's a lot of acceptance that's going to happen, and then there's a lot of anxiety and curiosity about somebody just saying, "Hey, I'm going to shun my existing modes of transport and adopt something." But that will come when there are going to be early adopters and people will show the way. And the good people to show the way today should be probably the companies which have the capability and the muscle to sort of actually deploy such a solution, whether it's a car or whether it's a minivan or a share auto or a bus. And when it's on the roads, people are going to adopt. There are several countries that can showcase this proof. And we have seen in few years, cities which just had demonstration vehicles now have adopted 20-25,000 cars that run as taxis, electric taxis. I'm not sure how this journey is going to change in the next couple of years, but I'm really excited because I see a lot of things happening in this space. I personally believe that electric vehicles for public transport, that should be the way which the government should push. And coincidentally, today when you're talking, Girish, the news that you see that is happening in the last couple of weeks is more or less tuned in that direction. I think we should get there. I hope we get there fast.
Now, as an enthusiast, you did have probably have a lot of learnings in this project. Looking back now, what would you see as the main thing that you picked up from the project, and have you applied the stuff that you picked up in other businesses that you take?
What this endurance project did definitely do to us was we had people coming to us asking us to work with them on such new exciting large scale high voltage and high capacity battery systems. So while the project is electric, it need not necessarily be a ground based vehicle. It is something like an underwater system, or some cases it is a aerial vehicle, and things of that nature are coming to us, which is pretty exciting from a business perspective because we've shown something that works. And today, as we speak, it's about 27 months it's been on the roads, and that's quite an achievement to have something that has been working without breaking down. And that gives a lot of confidence to people who come to us, or when we go talk to people saying, "Hey, you know what we can do? You all can also do this. You can also do much better." That kind of synergy and share of confidence, sometimes technology and ideas, that's something that has been good for us as an individual as well as a company.
That's really nice. It's good to know that people are reaching out to you and asking you for probably solutions or tips to kind of do something new. That's really good. On a final note, just want to ask you this again. As an enthusiast, do you see any other endurance challenges coming up your way? Are you planning for something big?
There are. You'll be among the first I'll let know, but not necessarily endurance per se alone. But I'm looking at adoption of electric mobility in other spaces, which would probably be of value. Could probably reduce carbon footprint. Could probably make a meaning in reducing the dependency on fossil fuel. I will definitely keep you posted, Girish. Right now, we have some things on the cards. Some things are in the proof of concept kind of stage, fairly well ahead. I will. You'll be amongst my first friends. I'll let know.
That's wonderful, Sayed. That will be really good to hear about because the podcast is just about that. So thanks for taking time, sharing your views, and sharing the experience of doing this endurance ride.
Hey, Girish, it was a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity, and I hope more people adopt electric in the very near future. And I think it should probably be the way India should also go. So, thank you, Girish, for this opportunity to speak to you.
So well, I hope you enjoyed the story. The story of how Syed Mubasheer made this endurance ride. It was really an interesting story when I heard it for the first time a few years back, and I'm glad I had a chance to get Syed on the show. Well, of course, the modern electric cars can do 300 kilometers or more in a single charge pretty easily. I mean, the high end ones like a Tesla or a Kona Electric and so on. But in a mini car, doing this kind of a range is really challenging even today. The story or the experience again reinforces what I have always been telling on this podcast that electric cars are really economical and they can really fit your bill in terms of the commute that you need to do. So, yes, I hope this experience or this story of Syed has probably rekindled your interest in purchasing an electric car. And I hope this podcast has been helpful in doing that. Now, on to this week's action item towards Mission Shunya. The next episode is going to be about entrepreneur Shalini Sharma who shares a journey of creating a platform to dispose electronic waste systematically. So, as a build up to that, I would encourage you to share your stories of how you have been handling waste in general, be it the dry waste, the wet waste, or the electronic waste. So, again, going back to what I said earlier in the podcast, if you have not been following Mission Shunya on the social media platforms, this is the right opportunity for you. Go ahead, tag me on a story, tag me on a post, go by the handle @Mission Shunya, where you share your story of how you're handling waste. It'll actually build up to the next episode of the podcast. So, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, subscribe to the podcast on wherever you're listening to this on. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and many more platforms. And if you have a feedback to give, you can write me an email, missionchunia@gmail.com. And the links to Syed's work are in the show notes section of this podcast episode. So until next time, signing off, this is Mission Shunya towards a zero carbon economy.